All right, we have Griffin Elkins with us today, and Griffin is here to talk about the series Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, Griffin, you live down in the Florida area, somewhat near Tampa. I don't know if there are many Tampa fans around you, but this series has officially gone 3-1. Toronto leads. They were down 4-1 with 10 minutes left in this game on Monday night in Tampa on the road. And the Toronto Maple Leafs score 3 in a row to tie it and then score 4 in a row in overtime to win the game, to take a 3-1 series lead. This has been one of the best series of the first round of the playoffs, which is a round that's been loaded, by the way. Griffin, what is your take so far on this series of Toronto and Tampa?
I actually just thought about this while you were mentioning it. I basically watched the Nashville Predators do the exact same thing to the Tampa Bay Lightning that Toronto did in Game 4, except the Preds were down 3-0 with 10 minutes left. This was quite a few years ago. I remember Austin Watson scored a shorthanded goal to get us going, but there was like 10 minutes and 40 seconds left, and we ended up winning right at the beginning of overtime in a regular season game, of course. But so maybe there's a bit of a habit here for 3 goals is the most risky lead in hockey.
There's no habit in the playoffs for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I can assure you of that.
That's true. Well, this series I think has been super fun to watch. It's very high energy. I'll get into tempers getting real hot here in a minute, and there's a lot of talent between both of these teams. A lot of big money between both of these teams. Game 1 was what you thought would be classic Toronto in round 1 of the playoffs. They were just going to get there. They were going to be good in the regular season, and they were just going to kind of fizzle out, and I mean, it was a big game. What was it? 7? Let me get the score pulled up.
7-3.
Kucherov had a huge game with 3 points. Corey Perry had 3 points. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in a multi-point game just in game 1 here. And Samsonov looked lost, and he's a good goalie, but he looked like he had never played high-level hockey before, sitting behind that goal. He looked like a child amongst men out there, with Kucherov and those guys just absolutely belittling him to ultimately win 7-3. But then the series
it was 7-2, I'm sorry, it was 7-3. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, get with the program, Ben.
Yep.
But then the series takes a turn, as we know. Right now it is 3-1, and with winning game 1, that means they've lost the next 3, right? Game 2 was the complete opposite. Toronto pops off. They get up big and they get up early. Big money is scoring big points in this game.
Yes.
Right? So you've got your guys that should be performing. You've got Morgan Riley, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, all those guys with a multi-point game, just absolutely laying the woodwork here. They looked great. Tavares with a hat trick on I think has been a questionable goal. Me watching it, I didn't really see how, but I think that's the one people are upset about. Morgan Riley has been moving the puck in this series like nobody's business.
Yep.
Samsonov looked like a new man.
Yep.
But what happened with the Lightning? Well, when your big money, your big names, your big guys aren't doing anything, you don't really have a chance to win, right? And you see that in a couple other series.
Well, let me butt in here as well, because I think that it's important to note the whole story with the Tampa Bay Lightning recently has been they just get in and then they start winning. Like when you made the Stanley Cup Finals 3 years in a row, making the playoffs, like the regular season only means so much. So the idea for Tampa was, hey, you know what? Get in, we'll do damage. The thing is that John Cooper would say, hey, you don't just get in and start to win. Like, you've got to start gearing up for the playoffs. You got to start preparing that mentality, that type of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Tampa ended the season 4-6-0. And I think that what you saw was the Tampa Bay Lightning roll into Toronto on night one. They're saying, you know what? Here we are. We play playoff hockey. And I think the Toronto Maple Leafs were sitting there saying, we struggle in playoff hockey. They lose that first game like that. And I almost think that Sheldon Keefe had to sit them down in the dressing room and say, boys, we are not as bad. We are not these losers who can only play in the regular season. We are these men who are a great hockey team with veteran experience, and they said we can show up to play. And I think that when they showed up that next night, the team that was not winning games coming into the playoffs, Tampa, was going to get punished for that. They weren't streaky. They weren't on fire. They weren't. The hunger doesn't seem to be there for Tampa like it has been in years past. And so that is what I've seen is like the big names for Toronto have said we're sick of losing, and the big names for Tampa are maybe just a little bit beat down.
I think there's a lot of truth to that, especially in hockey, a game much like baseball that is filled with streaks and highs and lows. It almost looks like Tampa, like you said, knew, well, if we get in, we've been there 3 years in a row, so who's to say we won't just make it? So they popped that cruise control button, set it to 65, and just started driving down the road. And guess what? They won 7-3 first game. But then, and to be honest with you, I'm impressed Toronto didn't fold after losing 7-3 to the team that has been to the Stanley Cup playoffs 3 years in a row. One of the best teams in the league, one of the best teams personnel wise over the last couple of years, probably throughout the history of the NHL. It would be very easy to just, well, I guess we're just not that team this year, guys. But then they turn it around completely. And what do? 7-2 them the next game?
Yep.
Toronto completely flips the script.
Yep.
And hits them with a 7-2. And it's because their big guys showed up. I mean, they had their big money was making big moves, right?
Yep.
That's what I've got written down here. Big money, big moves, big points. And that's how you win hockey games. When your guys that you're paying money are not performing, you're not going to win games. That's just how it goes.
Hey, let me throw this out there. I tweeted this out last night when this game was happening, but I want to say it here. I looked at the way Toronto fought back and really these last two games because they were down with a minute to go in game 3, tied it, won in overtime. Game 4, they were down with 10 minutes to go by a lot and came back and won it. I tweeted the winds have changed in Toronto. Last year, this team loses both those games in Tampa. They go back to Toronto down 3-1, and they're pretty much out of it. This new era Toronto Maple Leafs are not that team. They're done with it. They've matured. Their guys have experience. And you know what? I'm going to say it. This series, and I want to get your prediction as we start to wrap up here. I think this series I think Toronto goes home and wins it. I think they have the next game. I think Tampa's saying, you know what? It'll be nice to be on the golf course this year.
My heart, we'll cover this and then I'll go over game 3 and 4 real quick. But my heart says Toronto wins it in this next game. My brain tells me Tampa's not done. I don't think they're going to push game 7 or anything. And I definitely think Toronto is going to win this series. But I think it's going to take 2 more games. I think Tampa goes home because Tampa's not the team to lay down on their back and give up, And both of these last 2 games have been close. Tampa in theory, should have won both of these games. You score with a minute left. Then you get the beautiful overtime performance in game 3 from Ryan O'Reilly and Morgan Riley. The tale of 2 Rileys I have written down, one being O'Reilly. But, these guys are playing so well, but you can't. It's playoff hockey. You can't count anybody out.
And Sheldon Keefe talked about that in his press conference after the last game. He said, "Hey guys, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still got to win a game here, and that's Tampa that we're talking about."
The minute you think you've got it done is the minute you lose. That's how, especially with hockey, that's how hockey works. When you think you're done, that's when you start to get done. Um, Game 3 was that one was a fun watch. This has been the most fun series to watch. Well, it's between this and the Minnesota Dallas series.
Edmonton,
Uh,
LA has been my personal favorite.
there's there's so much good right now. The high energy, the bad blood, the hatred in all three of these series has been great, and we saw that come to a head in Game 3 here. You had a pretty scary hit on point, and I want to ask you. There was no penalty called on the hit, but what do you think?
No penalty. Look, sometimes your feet just get tangled up. Unfortunately, he fell. Now, was there a shove? Yes, but it wasn't unusual. Point just lost his footing in in an unfortunate spot. And really, what that reminded me of was the old school. Was the old school. You're battling it out for an icing, and that's how you had injuries happen, right? That's why you went to the hybrid icing. But no, I thought it was clean. What'd you think?
Yeah, I was the same way. I didn't think there was any ill intent or anything there, but and good on Tampa Bay. When you have a scary hit on one of your guys, when one of your guys gets hurt, what do? You buck up. And not only did your kind of goon guys buck up, but you had Steven Stamkos square up with Austin Matthews.
Oh,
I believe that was that Matthews' first fight
it
ever.
was. Yep, first fight ever.
You could tell because he didn't get his gloves off until he was almost on the ground. But you see the passion and the heat and the energy in this series that you don't get in the regular season. And the reason that I love playoff hockey so much is because it is so high energy at all times. And this game was close. And the next game was close. And this series could be anybody's. But the winds have changed and they're blowing in Toronto's favor. Like you said, Samsonov came up huge. He has turned completely around since that first game. In Game 3 especially, Tampa Bay had every chance in overtime to win that. And Samsonov said, no. He said, we're taking this home. Came up huge. Yep. Game 4 pushed on. Game 3, I think, has been my favorite. Fight aside, the overtime there was just amazing.
So good.
Game 4, I think, has been the reason most people are saying, Tampa might be done, and with good reason too. When you lose, being up 3 goals with less than 10 minutes left in regulation, and then you get tied, and then you take the overtime loss, that is crushing for morale. And I could see Toronto winning in the next game, but again, I think Tampa holds it out just for one more game. Maple Leafs, you have Nylander with 3 assists, Marner with 2 assists, Matthews with 2 goals. Again, the big money leading the charge here. What can you say? And what a comeback! It was amazing.
I'll tell you what, it is going to be exciting to see if Toronto can seal the deal for the first time since 2004, or if they choke it away like they've done in years past. You know what the storyline will be. They've given away a 3-1 series lead before, and so we'll see if they do it again. Well, thank you so much for watching this brief middle of the series recap on Toronto Tampa. Comment down below who you think is going to win this series. Does Toronto get it done now? Do they get it done game 6, or do they lose the series to the Tampa Bay Lightning? I want to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you don't mind hitting the like and subscribe button, that would mean so much to us. Griffin, thanks for joining, and
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next video.